Dr. Roelof Botha. I'm the economic advisor to the Optimum Investment Group, and you are watching RISKAfrica TV. Well, that was just before the fourth quarter 2018 GDP figures were published, and they were quite good. But predictably, it dipped a bit in the first quarter, as we all know, minus 3% quarter-on-quarter growth, but year-on-year 0, which is not that bad. And the main reason for that, of course, is all the uncertainty surrounding the election and the outcome of policies after the election, to what extent compromises would need to be made between the two factions of the ANC, which we all know exist. But as long as it's not a formal split, I think that's in South Africa's best interest. But what we certainly need in this country is an ethical government, and I think we're going to slowly but surely see the development or the appointment of more ethical people in this government. From a low base, that's quite easy, to be quite honest. So things have improved considerably since then. Well, I think the social media is missing it. I don't think they are looking at the facts. It is true that a number of, let's call them surveys of business confidence, have been published in the last couple of days, which point to a feeling of pessimism, and certainly the unrest that we experienced, the terrible unrest in Gauteng, in Joburg and Pretoria in particular, which included arson and assault. That was frightening to witness. We've always had, for the last 50, 60 years, we've had that type of conflict situation. It does flare up from time to time. There are estimates of 10 million people from Africa that are in South Africa as visitors, in inverted commas. That doesn't help matters. And when these surveys were conducted, it was the worst timing possible. End of August, the rand took a hell of a dip. Your JSE indices took a hell of a dip. It was just before the publication, days before the publication of second quarter GDP growth, which came out stellar, 3.1% positive. So quite frankly, I don't trust those surveys. People must start looking at the hard data. And quite frankly, if capital formation, which is the assets that you need to produce goods and services, including short and long-term insurance policies, if they increase by 18% capital formation in real terms in one quarter, which happened now in the second quarter, it's a record, then sure, it's a clear indication that businesses are becoming more optimistic about the future. Yes, the slides were supposed to inform them and provide them with clues to the answer. So on the first one, the answer is quite obvious. It's the 9 lost years, which Mr. Ramaphosa calls it that diplomatically. Mr. Trevor Manuel calls it the worst disaster ever to hit this country. As far as I know, if I quote him correctly. The fact of the matter is that for the last decade, we've had a systematic erosion of the competence of the public sector in this country. And Mr. Ramaphosa has to turn this around, and he's already started. And there are already visible signs of improvement, but it's going to take a while. Shamila Batoya at the NPA office is a good example. She inherited a bunch of people who are, I must be very careful about my choice of words now. Let's say they don't know what they're doing, or they belong to the wrong faction in the ANC. So she needs to clean up that place. And once she gets that done, you are going to see some prosecutions in this country. Make no mistake about that. I would give him 95%, and I'm a lecturer. I don't give 95% easily, I promise you. And that's really, he's done an exceptionally good work, because he needs to protect the hegemony to the extent that it is present within the ANC. He cannot afford for the ANC to split formally. So he has to be very careful. And there are people that were appointed by Mr. Zuma, whose corporate governance standards were not up to scratch, that have already been replaced without him having had to fire them. They fired themselves, so to speak. And more of that will happen in future. But the biggest Ramaphosa effect, as far as I'm concerned, is the third highest inflow of foreign direct investment in our history last year. And all South Africans should be very grateful that we now have a president who he has a commanding stature overseas. He's a statesman, he's intelligent, he understands business, and very importantly, he understands the need to make it easier for the private sector to create jobs and expand their businesses, which his predecessor didn't have a clue about. I like to believe that Tito and Pravin Gordhan are part of a team, but it's a team that's becoming stronger. There are other members of the cabinet, like the Minister of Education, the new Minister of Water Affairs, that are incredibly smart and competent, and they know what to do, and they are 100% behind Mr. Ramaphosa. And for the first time ever, the cabinet in this country had to sign performance agreements. The only way they can stay in cabinet is if they start appointing skilled, competent people in their national departments. They know that. That is a huge positive as far as I'm concerned. Yes, it's a pity, but and I didn't fabricate them, and I didn't have the opportunity or the time to show every single economic indicator. But just let's look at a couple of really important ones. I've mentioned capital formation, 18% quarter-on-quarter increase. This is unheard of. Tourism, tourist arrivals from overseas in April, 12% increase. For twice in the last 6 months, we've had increase in the value of mineral sales. Most of which are exported, of just below 20%. I mean, this is crazy. The value of our mineral sales is, in the first semester of this year, is an all-time record. Manufacturing sales in real terms has improved dramatically. Real retail trade sales now has a real growth momentum of 2.5%. Where must I stop? I mean, this is really, I don't produce these statistics. I get them from Stats SA and from the Reserve Bank and from other statistical agencies. And people should be made aware of the fact that you do have all of these green shoots are pointing to a recovery of the economy. Yes, the green shoots collectively represent quite a large number, an impressive number of key economic indicators, which seem to have turned the corner, which seem to have bottomed out. And it tells me that the economy is starting to react positively to the fact that we do have a lot more certainty than we had a year or two ago, and also perhaps to marginally lower interest rates, and also the fact that if you just take the rand exchange rate, is stronger than it was a couple of years ago. So there are reasons why people are becoming a little bit more bullish. Well, let's look at the facts first. Quickly, your long-term insurance industry's investment income is growing quite nicely currently. That's turned the corner quite a couple of quarters ago. And very importantly, short-term insurance premiums received. This is running at a very nice trajectory pointing north. And that won't happen if people are not buying assets. So the industry is full of life. There is the odd concern about the exchange rate, about the economy, about the unrest situation in the country. And my advice to people is just be a little bit patient. Give Mr. Ramaphosa another 12 to 18 months. And let's see whether there are more visible signs of these green shoots having actually started to grow and maybe bear some fruit.